All right, guys, here is this Texas sheet cake. And of course, you know, a sheet cake is going to be thin because it's in a cookie sheet. So it's almost like a bar is almost what it looks like. Hi, guys, welcome back to 234 in La Casa. So today we're going to be making a white Texas sheet cake. You're going to love this recipe. It's a moist cake and it doesn't take a lot of time to throw together. And then we're also going to add a walnut frosting on top of it. And this is a great frosting that you can use on several different cakes. You can use it on your red velvet cake if you would like to, but we're going to go ahead and make this white Texas sheet cake. I'm really excited to show you all this recipe, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you all over here in just a second to show you how to make a white Texas sheet cake and walnut frosting. See you in a second. All right, guys, so you're going to want to start off with a cookie sheet just like this, and you can either use shortening or you can use butter. We're going to paint butter all over this cookie sheet and flour it, so flour and butter it. Do not use any nonstick cooking spray. This is a white cake, and so the nonstick cooking spray can turn your cake, turn it brown, so you don't want to get it any darker than what it necessarily needs to be. You could also use parchment paper. You can cut some parchment paper to the size of your cookie sheet and do it that way, but I just prefer to butter and flour mine, especially with a baking dish that's not very shallow. Like this is, you know, it's just got a little, maybe like a 1/2 inch lip, and so it's hard to like get the paper in there. You can cut it down the corners and all that and make it like, but I'm about, not necessarily about speed, but I'm just about ease of use, and I don't want to deal with having to cut and alter parchment paper a whole lot. It kind of, you know, it's just not my thing, but if you want to do it that way, that's fine. So we're going to butter and flour our cookie sheet before we get started on our Texas sheet cake, vanilla Texas sheet cake or white Texas sheet cake batter. All right, y'all, now that we've got our baking sheet all buttered and floured, we're going to set it aside and start on the cake batter. All right, guys, so for the base of this batter, we're going to start by melting 2 sticks of butter. And while your butter is melting, this is going to be the perfect time for us to go ahead and sift our dry ingredients. And for my stand mixer bowl, I'm going to be sifting together, we need 2 cups of granulated sugar and 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm using White Lily, and a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. Now, if you're using salted butter for your base that you're when you're over there melting, then you'll want to use a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So in here, I've got a teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt because my butter is salted. But if you're using unsalted, like I said, you're going to increase your salt to a teaspoon instead of 1/2 teaspoon. Now that the butter has melted, you're going to want to remove your butter from the warm eye on your stovetop and allow your butter to slightly cool. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get two large eggs at room temperature. You're going to crack your eggs and slightly beat them. And then we're going to add our slightly beaten eggs to the dry mixture. And we're going to add a one cup of full fat buttermilk at room temperature. And we're going to add a 1/2 cup of full fat sour cream at room temperature. And next we're going to add our slightly cooled melted butter. Now we're going to get all of this mixed together. And you're going to want to use your paddle attachment if you're using a stand mixer. I've stopped my mixer. I'm going to lower my mixer down just to check my dry ingredients, and I see that some of my dry ingredients is not incorporated. I started off mixing on a lower speed setting, so I'm going to go ahead and increase my speed, and I'm also going to scrape underneath. Even though I have this paddle attachment with the rubber spatula covering, I'm still gonna just check underneath this cake batter just to make sure that everything is incorporated, just for my own mental satisfaction. Okay, guys? All right, so we'll go ahead and get this raised back up and increase our speed setting to a medium speed setting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn the cake batter off, and it looks really, really good. The batter is smooth. We're going to fold in 8 ounces of crushed pineapple, and you're going to want to drain your crushed pineapple. We're just going to fold that gently into our cake batter. So we've got that pineapple added. I'm just going to fold that gently in, and just make sure that when you're folding it gently in, that you try to get it as evenly distributed as you can in your batter. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get this white Texas sheet cake added to our sheet cake pan. All right, so you're just gonna wanna make sure your cake batter is even. And then before placing it in your oven at 375, you're gonna wanna tap this 3 times just to make sure you get all your air bubbles out. And we're going to bake this for 20 to 25 minutes. So the cake is out of the oven and we're gonna allow this to cool before we put our walnut icing on top. All right, so we're gonna melt 1 stick of butter over medium heat. Right. So now that the butter has seemingly, well, partially melted, we're gonna go ahead and add 1/4 cup of full fat milk or heavy whipping cream. I'm gonna be using heavy whipping cream instead of full fat milk. And we're going to increase the temperature on the saucepan up to high to bring this to a boil. And you're going to want to make sure that you stir continuously while you're bringing this to a boil. Now we're adding in our 1st cup of confectioner sugar. I'm going to get that added and stirred in. And you don't necessarily, if you have a whisk, you don't necessarily have to sift this confectioner sugar in, since this is a heated icing. Then it's gonna melt that sugar on down, but you can pre-sift if you would like to. All right, so this is how the icing looks. I got the last 1/2 cup added. These are the walnuts that I'm gonna be using. You're gonna add 1 cup of chopped walnuts to your icing. If you are not a fan of walnuts, you do not have to add any. I know my children do not enjoy nuts, so I'm probably going to ice the majority of the cake without nuts, or probably the entire thing, and just add some walnuts on the slices that I may want to enjoy with walnuts. So, and I wanted you all to notice too, with the icing, since it was over some heat, you can see that even though I didn't sift my confectioner sugar, there are no lumps or anything like that. And that's because this is a warm icing. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm gonna add the vanilla last because I don't want it to burn off. I want the frosting to continue to have that vanilla taste to it. You know, if you're cooking vanilla, the taste will, the flavor of the vanilla will cook off because it is, you know, it has some alcohol base to it. Okay, so we want to retain that, the vanilla taste. All right, guys, here is this Texas sheet cake. And of course, you know, a sheet cake is going to be thin because it's in a cookie sheet. So it's almost like a bar is almost what it looks like, but there you go. And you won't taste a whole lot of like bits of pineapple in it when you use the crushed pineapple. There are going to be some little bits, but not a lot. Okay. And I went ahead and put walnuts on that. Look how look at that. Okay, let me give it a taste. It is so good, y'all. That. That's some of the walnuts there. Okay. Well, I will see you all back here at 234 in La Casa. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is an excellent old school Texas, white Texas cheese. Sorry. It's an excellent, excuse me, old-fashioned white Texas sheet cake. This is an old school recipe. I hope you will enjoy it. See y'all next time.